you like what's going on. So if there's anything that you want to work on specifically. So what we do is we kind of target different areas with range of motion, and we work on mobility, and then we'll move into like a deeper stretch. So with that said, I know that there are a couple of requests earlier, which we'll get into a little bit deeper with the wrists, and the quads. Is there anything else that anybody has that's going on? Shoulders. Which shoulder for you? Was it your right shoulder? Do you feel like, what happened? I know you said you got pulled, but you fell on it.
Like, in literally this way, so it reverberated up the arm.
Okay.
So I don't.
All right, we'll do some like upper back, shoulders.
Yeah,
stuff.
like just jammed with the joint.
Okay. Anybody else that has any like specific requests? No? Okay. All right, so let's start, we'll start seated. Find a comfortable seat. It could be whatever. It could be in a cross-legged position. If you're gonna sit in this position, we will be here for a little bit of time. So I always like to just cue to give a block or a bolster or something kind of to help for your hips to have a little bit of space. And what that is gonna do is when you bolster yourself up a little bit more, it's just gonna give your knees some space to fall left and right. So the blankets are really nice. The blocks are really nice, just kind of depends on what it is you're trying to do. So we're gonna get into the wrists a little bit because it was a request. So I want you to take your hands into prayer, okay, right by your chest. And I want you to take your hands, you're gonna keep them connected to each other, try to keep them in the center. Try to keep the base of your palm also connected. If it separates, it's okay, but that's where your edge is going to be. That's where your stopping point is going to be. I want you to push your wrists down towards your pelvic floor. Okay, so as that happens, you're gonna keep your thumbs nice and close towards your chest. And you don't need to, if you feel it right here, just pause and breathe into the first place that you start to feel it in. Right, so if you just kind of take a couple of breaths right here, I want you to lift your chest, kind of pull your upper back back. Okay, and you just breathe. And so maybe with the next exhale, you can kind of take your wrists and push them down a little bit further, a little bit closer towards your thighs. Okay, now take your right fingers and push your right fingers into your left fingers, but nothing moves except for your fingers. Right, so you're pushing them away from your midline, right? So as you push them away from the midline, you should start to feel a deeper pulling sensation in your wrist, maybe even up into the forearm, just kind of depending. Okay, and I want you to release that. So you're gonna come back to center. So when I say release, typically just referring to coming back to like that first starting point, and then you're gonna push again. So right fingertips push into your left. Right, and then you're gonna release on out of that. You're gonna keep on with that motion. So it's kind of like this flossing sensation. Try to equally find pressure in all 10 of your fingertips, or all 5 of your fingertips pushing into the other 5 of your fingertips. You push, and then you come back to center. But the object here is to keep your wrists pretty even, right? So you're not moving into this place where you're like lifting your elbows up, right? Because then you're not going to have that opposition or that push and then pull. You see, push your fingertips into the other ones, and then you come back. And then you push, and you come back, right? And it could be slow, and it could be quick. It just kind of depends on where you're at, what kind of flossing sensation that you want to experience at this moment. And push, and come back. Okay, and then you're going to come back to center. Okay? And now you're going to push your, hi, welcome. Come on, set up over here. Okay, so now you're gonna, don't worry about it, it's all good. I'm Kristina, nice to meet you ladies. Now you're gonna take your left fingertips are gonna push into your right, and then you're going to just leave that there. So just kind of breathe into this sensation of the wrist starting to open up. Now to start to get a little bit more easeful. And you push your fingertips into the other fingertip a little bit more firmly. So right here, we're just doing a little bit of a wrist stretch at the moment. So what I want you ladies to do is start to push your fingertips. You're gonna come to prayer, push your wrists and your forearms kind of down towards your pelvic floor, and then push your left fingertips to your right. Okay, so without leaning, right, we're just pushing the fingertips into the other ones. Right, now find that block. So you push your left fingertips into the right, and then you come back to center. Then you push them into the right, and you come back to center, so on and so forth, and you keep on kind of moving in this direction. And then maybe each time that you do it, it becomes a little bit deeper than the last time. Right, but be careful and notice. I want you to notice what happens in your body when you start to get a little bit deeper into the stretch. Right, do you notice that you start to lean into one side or the other side? Okay, so then you're gonna come back to center, and so just come right back to that neutral place. Right, keep your hands exactly where they are. You're gonna take your fingertips and start to bring them out forward. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing. So now they're just facing towards the windows. So right fingertips into your left, so it's a little bit more challenging. Then you're gonna come back to center. You're gonna bring your right fingertips to your left and come back to center. So you might have to start to push a little bit more firmly. Okay, so back and forth, you find this flossing sensation, back and forth. You're gonna come right back to center so that your fingertips are pointing straight forward. Take your left fingertips and push them into the right. So your left fingertips now push down into the right. Okay, so right here is a really great place for feedback. Because we want to kind of move over to the right. Okay, just because of the nature of the way that our hands are. So you have to really focus on your finger strength. So this is also working kind of on that finger strength, on that grip strength. You push and you come back to center. You push and you come back to center. And so now bring everything back to center. You're gonna bring your fingertips so they face down. Your fingertips are gonna face down. Right, again, you're keeping your pinkies close to your body, and then keep the base of your palms together, glued together, and then you're gonna push right into left again. And then you come back to center. So push right into left, and then come back to center. And so you push and release. You push and release. So I want you to do that maybe 3 more times. And then you're gonna move it into the other side. Right, so right here, you're gonna push your left fingertips into your right. So sometimes finding the sensation of even like pulling the skin of your fingertips down and push to the right. And you kind of push to the right and then pull the skin down. And you play around with the angle that's needed to find different parts of your wrist. Okay, and you go back and forth, back and forth. So you're gonna come back to center. Now what I want you to do is take your fingertips and lift them up towards your sternum. So you're gonna lift them up, 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 right? So the base of your palms is gonna be lifting up into your chest, and then you're gonna push it back down towards your belly button. Pull it up, so you're sliding it up, and then you're pushing it down. So as you're sliding up until the point where the base of your palm starts to kind of separate, and you feel it release. And then you're gonna push it back together and push it down, right? A couple more times. So it's a pretty small movement, up and down, up and down. So then you're gonna release out of this, and I want you to start to roll your wrists. Roll your wrists. I want you to bring your arms up overhead. You're gonna bring your arms up into a V shape. You're gonna open and close, open and close. Open and close. So nice and slow. I want you to really grip your fingertips into your hands here. Right? So you're grabbing into a fist. Open and close. Open and close. And then you start to quicken the pace a little bit. So I'm not going to cue how fast your pace is going to be, but I want you to start to open and close a little bit quicker. But don't shy away from really squeezing. So every time you squeeze your hands into a fist, I want you to really squeeze. So don't just kind of go through the motions, right? You're gonna squeeze and release and squeeze and release. So however fast your body will allow for you to squeeze and fully release is how fast I want you to start to go. So you squeeze and release and squeeze and release. We're gonna work into the shoulders because we will stretch them. Squeeze and release, squeeze and release. Right, and then can you pump it up a little bit more? So really start to get into those forearms again. Squeeze. We're gonna be here for about another 30 seconds. Yeah, maybe you close your eyes. Maybe you breathe a little bit deeper. I know the shoulders are burning. I know the forearms are starting to talk. I know. We're gonna be here for another 10 seconds. Right, squeeze, release, squeeze, release. So pick up the pace one last time. And then release everything down. Shake your shoulders out, okay? So now we're gonna move it to the opposite side of the wrist. So in the top part of the forearm, you're gonna take your hands and you're gonna bring them together. So try to connect your fingertips here, right? So this is a little bit more challenging just because the fingertips, the back of the hands don't have as much strength as the front of the hand. So I want you to think about pressing, like if you bring your hands together, right? It's gonna be easier to move. The force is gonna be easier to move if your hands are all together here. So top of your wrists are kind of pressing together as best as they can, right? And then you're gonna press your right into your left. Right? And then you're gonna release. Kind of feels funny. It's an interesting thing to get used to at first, right? You're gonna press and then release. And you press and release. So this should be getting into like the top of the wrist. Be careful not to stretch it too deeply, right? I think that that's a common thing that a lot of us like to do, and especially if you practice anything really, like you want to get into like the deepest variation of what the stretch or whatever it is supposed to look like. But here, my philosophy is you find the place where you first start to feel it, right? And then you breathe into that place. And you just kind of notice, you observe what happens in your body. Tom, see if you can relax your shoulders a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Okay, now pause there and you're gonna bring your left fingertips in towards your right. Left fingertips push into the right. Back and forth. Back and forth. And you just kind of notice, what happens here. So the skin might kind of be sliding around a little bit. You can see that if you pull up towards the ceiling, it's gonna release the stretch because the skin is part of the stretch of what's happening here, right? So you're gonna push and release, push and release. Because our arms don't do all the other twisting in this direction. We're only gonna do it like this in this direction, then we have something else on the floor. So now come back to center and just kind of release that, roll your wrists out. Okay, we're gonna come into a tabletop position. So when you make your way into your tabletop position, palms are going to face left. Actually, just pause right here with your fingertips facing forward and just kind of notice what that feels like. And then walk your fingertips so that they face towards the long edges of your mat. So right to the right, left to the left, and then walk them a little bit wider. I want you to start to shift your weight back and forth. Back and forth. And then as you shift your weight back and forth, I want you to slowly start to bring your hands together. Right, so maybe like a half an inch at a time, you start to bring them towards the center. You're gonna walk them in back and forth, left and right, until your wrists are basically touching. Okay, and then once you get into that center place, there's no rush because we're gonna be here for a little bit of time. I just want you to rock back and forth. And then maybe start to turn those rocks into circles. Move a couple of circles.
Okay, if you can't touch off.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You pause in that place so that most of the time, everything that I'm saying is a directional cue. So if they can't come any closer, you're just moving them in that direction. Start to move your circles in the opposite direction. Okay, and then one click at a time, you're gonna start to rock back and forth again. You're gonna walk your hands back out. Walk them back out. So pause right here, you're gonna pause in the center. I want you to take your fingertips and bring them, keep them exactly where they are. You might need to walk them a little bit closer to your knees for a little bit more stability, but your fingertips are now gonna face towards one another, so you're flipping the palms. Okay, so again, you're gonna sway back and forth, but this sway is probably gonna be a lot smaller. This sway is probably gonna be a lot smaller. What I want you to focus on here as you sway back and forth, push the palm down, the back of your hand down into the ground, and then try to pull your hands apart, but nothing is actually moving. So you can feel the skin separating, right, from the wrist and the hand. And then now bring your fingertips to touch. They don't have to touch, but you're bringing them back together, and then you're pulling them apart. And you're pushing them together, and you're pulling them apart. Yeah, so tiny, tiny movement, right, because it doesn't really need a whole lot. And just kind of notice as you move through these things, where can you place a little bit more pressure down? If you push down into your fingertips, what happens? If you push down a little bit more firmly into the back of your hand, what happens? So you pause right here, now take your fingertips and point them towards your knees. Take your fingertips and point them towards your knees. And stillness, if I'm cueing movement and it doesn't feel good, then don't do it, right? Stillness might feel just fine. Right, so again, you might have to walk them a little bit closer to your knees, maybe place a little less pressure. And what you can do is you can kind of pop up a little bit, drag your hands out and then lower down. Pop up a little bit, you drag your hands forward and then lower down. Right, you kind of come so far forward as you feel like you can take, and then you start to move it back towards you. Right, so these tiny little movements. You lift and you lower. You lift and you lower.
How much should be straight?
As straight as possible, yeah. And then go ahead and one click at a time, just kind of release your hands down. I want you to take your hands down, put your fingertips, so your palms are now on the ground, palm is facing down. Take your fingertips and point them back towards your knees. If that's too much for your wrists, you might stagger your hands, you might have one hand to the left, one hand to the right. Or one hand towards your knees and the other hand to the opposite side. And you can again pause or maybe start to make circles. So the closer that your hands are to your knees here, the more easeful that this is. The further away from you becomes a little bit more challenging, right? So what I want you to do is start to just kind of paw your way forward and back. Right, so even if your hands are staggered here, just kind of walk forward and back. Okay, if your hands are staggered, you're going to come out of that and switch it up. If your fingertips are facing back towards your knees, just leave them right there. There are a couple rounds of breath right here. And then you're going to slowly release. And sit back into your comfortable seat. And just kind of gently roll your wrists out. So here's something that you can do on your own time. And maybe the next time we'll go into a little bit more depth with we could do it now actually. So when there's pain in the wrist, a lot of times it's coming, like your tendons are gonna come all the way up into your forearms, right? So what you can do is you can take your hand to your forearm, so take your left hand to your right forearm. Take your non-dominant hand to your dominant forearm, if that makes sense, because everybody's a little bit different. I'm right-handed. Everybody else seems to be also. Are you right-handed too? Great. Perfect, that cueing works great. So take your left hand to your right forearm. And all I want you to do is just start to move your fingers and then kind of move them individually. You place your hand, you kind of cup your whole entire forearm there. And then what I want you to do is, the middle finger is a really easy one to find. So I want you to take your middle finger, just start to wave it up and down. Do you feel that in your arm? So this is called a pin and stretch. This is really great for your wrists. So you're gonna find your ligament, right? You push your fingers down into that ligament. I want you to flex your hand push your fingers down into the ligament of the one finger. Push, 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 and then take your hand and push it down. Right, and then you come back up. You kind of release the fingers that are pressing on the forearm. You can do it again, you can do it a couple times, and then you move to a different part of your forearm. Right, so you have to kind of wiggle around. Sometimes it takes some time to find it, but you find it, you push down, you flex. And then you pull your hand down. Right, and then to add to that, things that you can do is you can push down and pull up. So you would pull away from the wrist. And then you pull down. That's called a pin and stretch. When you find a point of tension, you push down into it, and then you move in opposition to it. So I'm doing that with the neck because it's a great way to do that in the neck too. Right, so you're finding your ligaments in your arm, you flex your hand, or you extend your hand, and then you push down, and then you push your fingertips down. Right, so this is a really great place to come to, especially if you're feeling any like tightness or anything that's going on in the wrist, like Tom, this might be really good for you. Do you feel that? Cool, awesome. So if you want to play around with the other arm, we can also do that too for a couple of moments, couple minutes. And so you would extend to pull your hand up. Because you want to find it, here. You want to find it where everything is compressed, right? Where there's a little bit more contraction. So that when you pin down and then you push your hand down, now you're lengthening it, right? Does that make sense in the way that that would happen? Right, so just kind of move around and you find your ligaments, push down. And some of them, it might feel sore. If it feels sore, that's normal, right? Up in this area. This is gonna release a lot of issues that happen in the wrist. Fortunately, it doesn't cure carpal tunnel, but it definitely helps. It feels good if you're having other issues in your wrist. Although I do hear that the carpal tunnel surgery is, it's really good for anybody who has it. Okay, so sometimes just like a little massage in that area. Okay, and then just kind of release and roll your wrists out. You're gonna grab hold of your strap. You're gonna push up onto your shins. So I think what I want everybody to do is take a block in between your heels this way. Right, so it doesn't matter if it's this way or this way, but I want it widthwise. I'm gonna get you a different one, Amy. Because I think that this is a really good hips width apart for most of us. And what I wanted to do is provide a little bit of feedback for what we're gonna move into for our shoulders. So just having this feedback of the floor underneath the shins and the block in between your heels. I want you to squeeze your block with your heels. And what happens? You kind of push down into your shins a little bit more firmly. Right, I want you to take your belly button and pull it in towards your spine. As you push into your shins, you might kind of feel your glutes light up a little bit. Your glutes should be activated without squeezing them. Right, so release the block and just kind of feel the difference. Now squeeze the block again and push your shins down. Do you feel the difference? Right, so now release that. You're gonna do it one more time. So you're gonna push down into your shins and then activate your glutes. Push into your shins, squeeze your block. Right, so now you're gonna try to stay here the entire time, right in this place. Nothing moves. The only thing that's gonna move is our arms. And so your arms are gonna come out in front of you. I want you to pull your strap apart. You're gonna lift up overhead, pause at the crown of your head, and then you're gonna lower down. Right, so you lift up, then you lower down. Right, so seemingly simple, lift and lower. I want you to pull the strap apart, so create resistance as you lower down. You lift up, you try to pull apart, And then you lower down. We're gonna take 3 more, just like that. So you're gonna lift, pause at the crown of your head and lower. So maybe you add in your breathing, you lift up, you breathe in. And then you exhale, you lower down. Inhale to lift up. And then exhale to lower. Good, so now for the next part, we're gonna start from the crown of the head and we're gonna go back behind us. So arms are gonna probably need to be a little bit wider than they just were. If you feel like they're too wide or not wide enough, you can just slide your hand up and down the strap. So you're gonna breathe in, go ahead and lift your arms up overhead, right? Now, here's where it's really important. You push your shins down, squeeze that block, so don't forget about it. Drop your arms back behind you. So nice and straight, nice and long. Good, inhale to lift up. So your belly hugs in towards your spine, nothing moves. And then you lower back down. So again, you're trying to pull that strap apart, right? But you're trying to also create this really smooth range of motion as you lift and lower. Right, so if you feel any like clicking or any discomfort, you're gonna make your strap a little bit longer. Right, you lift up. And then you lower down. We're gonna do 2 more just like that. Lift up. And lower down. Last one, breathe in, lift up. Breathe out, lower down. Good, you're gonna inhale, lift up. Exhale, lower down. So we're gonna do a full range of motion. So this time I want you to see if you can make your strap a little bit shorter. It could be a millimeter, right? It doesn't have to be shorter at all. But everybody's range of motion is gonna look different, so don't try to copy anybody else's in the room. Try to pull your strap apart, right? And your inhale, you're gonna lift. And as you exhale, you push your shins down, you lower your arms back behind you. Right, so you breathe in, you lift. Breathe out, lower in front. Good, inhale, lift, push your shins down, exhale, strap lowers back behind you. Breathe in to lift. Breathe out, lower, right? So the shoulders, the arms are moving around your body. You are not moving your body in and out of your strap. Right, so that's why you activate. So you push down into your shins and squeeze your block to help stabilize your body so that you can just focus on your range of motion. Right, so you're gonna take another 2, maybe 3 more rounds. Full round is up and back, back and forward. That's 1. Right? You can move at whatever speed, at whatever pace it is that you need. Right, and just because we're working on range of motion doesn't mean that you have to make it smaller. If you started smaller and it felt good, but now it's not feeling so good, you make it longer. Right, so after this last round of coming down in front, no rush to get there, complete your round. And you just pause, right, so release your strap. And just kind of shake out your shoulders here. Right? You feel it in your forearm? When you look like your joints hyperextend a little bit easier. Like that, so hyperextension is, you know, when your joints, yes, exactly. So when you come back, I want you to focus on just having like a little bit, a tiny little bit of bend in your arms. So rather than completely locking out, right? My elbow doesn't, I don't have any hyperextension. But if you're feeling pulling and pain in these areas, I want you to bend a little bit, right? So it's gonna look a little bit more, I'm gonna exaggerate it so that you can see, but it's gonna look a little bit more bent. So that you don't completely lock out your joint. Yeah, that's probably why, because it's stressing all the things that are kind of pulling in that area. Okay, so just kind of roll out your shoulders here. Okay, so I want to do a couple of things, more work with the shoulders. We're gonna come on down to our bellies. I want you to grab hold of your block. So you're gonna come onto your belly. Take your block out in front of you. The block is out in front of you. Chin or nose or forehead to the ground. And your feet are gonna stay totally connected. all I want you to do here. So you're not lifting anything up just yet. All I want you to do is block is left and right, in left and right of your hand, right in the palms. Don't want you to take your thumbs and grip the block. Okay, I want you to just squeeze your palms into the block. Squeeze your palms into the block. So your chin, your nose, your forehead is down on the ground. And just squeeze the block. So it's static hold. And you squeeze, really, really squeeze. And you breathe. And then release that. So feel your shoulders kind of light up as you squeeze. And then release. And keep on doing that. So you're going to squeeze. And then you release. You squeeze. You release. You can do that 2 more times right here. You squeeze. And release. And that's okay. You squeeze. Good. And then you release. And so keep on holding the block. Chin, nose, forehead, stays down. I want you to lift your arms as high as you can. So you lift your arms. And then you tap the block back down. And you lift your arms. And you tap the block back down. Okay, so you lift and lower. You squeeze the block with your hands. Squeeze and you lift and you lower. Good. Squeeze and lift and lower. I want you to do it 3 more times. Squeeze, lift, lower. Good. Squeeze, lift, lower. Keep pushing the tops of your feet down, right? Try not to invite your lower back into this. And then just pause. Just pause right there. So just kind of release the block, keep it out in front of you, but you're just gonna release. Make sure your arms have space to make like a full circle out in front of you and to the sides without hitting anything. You might need to kind of push everything out of your way, all the way down, like as if you were to make a really big snow angel out in front of you. Okay, and just make sure you have that space. Okay, so block it out in front of you. I want you to hold it now with your fingers. So you're gonna pass your block around you. So you're gonna lift up your arms. Your chin, your nose, your forehead might kind of float a little bit. You're gonna bend into your elbows. Try to keep your arms as straight as possible. Take your block, pass it back behind you. And then bring your block out back in front of you. Big circle in one direction, and then you're gonna come in the opposite direction. You pass your block, and then you come all the way back out in front of you, and then rest for a breath after you complete the full circle. Go to the left, to the right, and then rest. Okay, and then you're gonna do that 5 times. So you're gonna kind of lift up your block in your head, and then pass your block back behind you into the right hand or the left hand, whatever side you started with, and then you move right to the other side. Pass it back behind you, squeeze your shoulder blades together as you start to pass the block behind your low back, and then you lower down. Okay, so you're gonna do that 3 more times. You're gonna lift up. Left hand first, pass it back behind your low back. Try to keep it away from your body, pass it back into the left hand, keep it in the right hand, and then pass it back behind you. And then back in front. Right, so you're gonna do that 2 more times after you rest in between left and right sides. So maybe you just take a breath and then you lift. And you should start to feel this. I think it's important to note, you should start to feel this in the lower part of your back. Those muscles are working. And then one more here. Lift up, you pass. Left and right. Right and left. Really nice work, everyone. And then you're gonna come all the way back down to center. Perfect. So for the next part, what I want you to do, what you can do, you don't have to, but you can take your blocks and place them left and right of your shoulders. So they would be placed left and right of your shoulders. So if you don't have your block, you kind of need to reach for it. Everybody good? Okay. So you're not gonna bring underneath your shoulders, you're gonna place them outside of your shoulders. So it's gonna come right here.
You're gonna start on the lowest setting first. If this is too high, you can just ditch the blocks and still do the same movement. So it's very similar to what we just did, only it's without passing the block. You're gonna reach your arms out in front of you. Okay, you're gonna lift up, head, neck, shoulders, chest, and bring your arms with you. And then you're gonna bend your elbows and swim back behind you. And then come back forward and swim forward. Right, so the purpose of the block is so that you clear the block. Right, if that's low, you wanna challenge, you wanna lift it up a little bit higher, you lift it up a little higher. If that's too much at all, just ditch the block completely. Right, so you bring the block to the left and the right side of your body, and you swim forward, you reach forward. Right, you're gonna stay lifted though, bend your elbows and then swim back. Come back forward, reach forward, bend your elbows, think about squeezing your shoulders together as you come back. Reach forward, and then squeeze your shoulders together, come back. I want you to do about 4, maybe 5 more. Reach forward and swim back. Good, reach forward. And then swim back. So bend your elbows when you come back. You bend your elbows and squeeze your elbows together. Yeah, squeeze your shoulder blades together. Good, reach forward, bend the elbows, squeeze the shoulder blades together and then release back. Come back forward. So Tom, next time you come back, so come bring your arms back forward. Okay, good. Now as you pull your arms down, drive your elbows down towards the back of the room. So bend your elbows. So lift up. And then bend your elbows right there. Yeah, squeeze your shoulder blades, perfect, just like that. And then you release, you come back forward. And then come all the way down when you're done. If you're gonna tense your fingers, you're gonna bring your fingertips to like 9 and 3. Okay, 9 and 3. And I want you to push down into your fingertips. You're gonna lift your chest and then just drop your head, but I want your head to be floating off of the ground. So you're squeezing your shoulder blades together here, right? And you're opening up the front of your chest. Another 2 breaths right here. So you just let your chin just kind of hang heavy, release the chest and the front. And then come all the way down to your belly. Good, you're gonna come onto your left side, come onto your left side. Grab both of your blocks. I want you to place the block in between, so you're gonna come into like the fetal position. You're gonna bring your knees to stack on top of your knees. Hip on top of hip. And then you're gonna bring a block underneath your head and in between your knees. If you have a blanket, the blanket might be nice in between the knees. Really anything that will just provide a little bit of feedback, where the blanket might be nice underneath your head. It just really depends on how comfortable. Jen, bring your knees up towards your, so you want to create a 90-degree angle with the hip and with the back of the knee. Okay, so everything is stacked. It's important that everything stays stacked here. We're gonna move into some shoulder rotation. So again, make sure you have a clearance. We should all have that because we just did a lot of steps. So you're gonna bring your hand on top of hand. So your right hand is on top of your left hand. Good. And then knees stay stacked. Hips stay stacked. You're gonna reach your right fingertips out a little bit further. And you're gonna start to trace a big circle up and over your head. Let your palm flip up when it wants to flip up. You try to keep your hands connected to the ground the entire time, right? And then you bring your hand up and over your hip, and you keep on making these nice slow circles. So you lift all the way up, and I want you to let your chest and your shoulders start to rock open, but your hips and your knees and your ankles stay glued together and stacked. Yeah. You make these nice big circles. So not forcing it, right? So if you feel any pulling, any rubbing, you know how sometimes you can feel like inside of the joint, some of these little almost like snapping, or it happens in the hip, it happens in the shoulders. It's the tendons that are actually tearing the tiniest bit each time when we kind of force them into positions, right? So listen to all of the things, all the noise that your joints are making, and you back out just a little bit, right? So you're gonna keep on making these nice big sweeping circles. Right, and the blanket or the block in between the knees is just really providing feedback for like how much your knee keeps receding back. Right, so the next time that your hand is on top of hand, I want you to just pause right there. Right, and then you're gonna bring it in the opposite direction. So you're gonna start to drive your fingertips down towards your knees, up and over your hips. So try to keep your hand connected to your body, connected to the ground for as long as you can without forcing it. You breathe, you take slow, deep breaths in and out through your nose. This is like one of my favorite things to do. I love it.
I think it's so, and you don't think you're feeling like.
Yeah, but it is a lot, yeah, it's a lot of work still, but and over time, after you keep on doing it, like even within like one session of just doing it right now. You do feel the difference of the mobility, right? So the next time that your right arm, don't complete this round, don't rush to get there. The next time your right arm is out to a T, I want you to leave it out open to a T. So I want you to stay right here in this position where it feels like your right shoulder is just suspending and kind of lifting up. And I want you to feel this stretch, this opening that's happening from like your sternum all the way through, maybe even your right bicep. Right, and you breathe. You take a couple of really deep breaths here and you try to twist a little bit deeper, but keeping your knees stacked and your hips stacked. Right, so with an exhale breath, what I want you to do, you're gonna remove your blanket or your blocks underneath your head and in between your knees. And with an exhale breath, I want you to take your right shoulder and glue it to the ground. And as that happens, your right knee is going to pull back, I want it to. I want you to come into a twist now. So a supine twist is different than opening up the chest and the shoulders. Right, so as your right knee kind of pulls back, the right hip kind of pulls back. When we're in a supine twist, the goal is to keep your shoulders totally grounded. Right, so especially here after kind of all that leaning forward and into the twist, you might need to push down in certain parts of your body. And some of your skin might be a little scrunched up. You breathe. So your gaze is over the left-ish, right? So somewhere in between like your heart and the right, the heart and the right shoulder. Right, you might even find that you have like a little bit more space here in this twist than you usually do. And as you inhale, come back to center. So come back into that place that you started on your left side. Okay, and then you're gonna come onto your back. So just flip onto your back. You're gonna hug your knees in towards your chest. Hug your knees in towards your chest. And so before we get to the other side, I want to do just a little bit of like a quad and a hip opener. So I want you to take your feet down, walk them the width of your mat, and then start to sway your knees left and right, like as if they were windshield wipers. So they're gonna move at the same time to the left, same time to the right. You're gonna go back and forth here. Right, so some things I want you to focus on here while you're doing this is I want you to keep your heels connected, but your toes don't need to stay connected. Right, because as you windshield wipe back and forth, we have a tendency, not like that, Natalia, I love that though. I love the interpretation. And you keep your, just right here, you keep your heels connected and your toes flipped up. Yeah, no, I love that though, because it gives me, it teaches me to cue maybe a little bit different. It's so great though, right? Like if you have somebody, you give somebody like verbal cues on to draw something and everybody's like drawing will come out completely different. I love that. Right, so then the next time that your knees are falling to the left, I want you to leave them falling to the left. Right, and a couple of things that I want you to focus on here is what's happening in your right hip and your right quad. Right, so the first thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna take your right heel and I want you to pull it back towards your right shoulder. So you're gonna keep it wide as it is, but you just pull your right heel back towards your shoulder. So the inner right thigh is heavily hanging, yeah. Got tight quads. I feel okay. If you want to, you can stay right here, or you can take your left ankle and cross it on top of your right quad. Right. Want to find a little bit more length, you might reach your right hand up and overhead. Release your ankle from the knee if you have it. And bring your knees back up through center. And then again, you just windshield wipe them back and forth, right side to side, left and right. Next time your knees fall over to the right, you're gonna leave them there, right? So you might need to adjust your feet, you might need to bring them a little bit wider, you might need to bring them a little bit closer to you. But first things first, though, take that left heel and slide it in a little bit closer towards your glute and just pause. And you might take your hand and just kind of throw it up overhead so that your fingertips reach back up towards the window. You want to, you can take that right ankle and cross it on top of your knee if you haven't done so already. Just allow for this to just kind of pull down, right? But it's only assisting gravity. If it's taking you out of this pose, if it's taking you out of this place, I want you to just kind of come out of it and maybe find a different variation of it. And inhale, release your right ankle, bring everything back up through center. And then again, you just sway left and right, left and right. So come on over to your right side now. Come on over to your right side. Grab your blocks, grab your blanket. You're gonna set up for the other side of your shoulder, the other shoulder. Left hand stacks on top of right, ankle on ankle, you're at those 90-degree angles. Reach your fingertips out in front of you. Maybe try to keep your hands connected to the ground as you bring your fingertips up and over your head. Okay, let your chest roll open and you keep your knees glued together. And then your fingertips come up and over the hip. You take about 10, maybe 12 rounds of this. Next time that your palm is on top of palm, you're gonna pause. And then you start to bring your left hand down towards your knee, up and over your hip, and you move in the opposite direction now. You move all the way in the opposite direction. Next time you're open out to that T, I want you to just leave it there. But keep your knees stacked, keep your hips stacked. And enjoy this open, this pulling sensation. Kathy, I want you to flip your palm up towards the ceiling the next time that you're open rather than down.
Yeah.
Yeah, open up your chest. Do you want it? You can, yeah, there you go. Perfect. And so breathe into your left shoulder, your left chest. Then release the block and the blankets. And then press your left shoulder all the way down to the ground and come into your supine twist. So let your left knee pull back towards the Maji Yoga sign. Try to get your shoulder all the way down. Yeah, open up, twist from your torso. You breathe. In and out through your nose. Come back into your fetal position. On the right side, and you pause right there. And I want you to come onto your back. As you roll onto your back, go hug your knees and towards your chest. Kind of massage your lower back here, back and forth. And I want you to rock and roll the length of your spine, so up and down from your tailbone through the crown of your head, right? Up and down, and eventually you're just gonna come up into a seat. So whenever it feels good to land in a seat, take a deep breath in. I want you to lift your arms up high, take your time to get there, breathe out, fold forward, hinge and fold forward. Cross-legged or however you want. It could be cross-legged, it could be in the extended Paschimottanasana. It just really depends on what feels good for you. And then inhale, start to walk your way back up. You're gonna roll over your shins, you're gonna come into a tabletop position, tabletop position. So you can stay facing the back of the room. Stay facing the back of the room. Have your strap available, might not need it. But just have it ready. Okay, so we're gonna take it might actually feel really nice to make sure you have knee padding for this next part. Under the left knee specifically, okay, so. You're gonna take your right foot and step it up in front of you. Okay, so you're gonna come up into a lifted position. I want your knees to be at 90. Everybody looks good. Perfect. So you're gonna take your left heel and click it up towards your glute. So a couple of things that can happen here. You can use your strap. So if you want to, you can use your strap. It might feel nice to just kind of make a loop in your strap. If you feel like you can't, grab your foot. If you know that you can, then I'll cue that in a moment. But if you feel like it's gonna be challenging, it might be really nice to make a strap that's like a little bit smaller. Okay, and then throw it over your left foot, your left toes. Sometimes that's the hardest part. So firstly, you're gonna take your strap, throw it over your shoulder, your left shoulder. And then you're gonna click your heel in towards your glute. And as you do that, you're gonna pull your strap down. So what I want you to activate here is your quad. If you're having trouble with it, let me know and I'll give you something different to do. Right, so this is one of the versions, right? One of the ways that you can do it. You can keep on pulling a little bit more, and as you do, you're gonna take your pelvic floor and you're gonna try to scoop it towards me. Right, so imagine like your hips were a bowl and you were scooping forward. Right, the next way that you can do this is grab hold of your right foot. Right, you could ditch the strap altogether. So here's where balance starts to get a little bit tricky. You grab hold of your right foot, right? And you might take both of your hands back behind you and squeeze your heel in towards your glute. Okay, so if this is where you're at, I want you to pull your chest forward and take your pelvic floor and scoop it forward. If you have the strap, just focus on the strap. Do we feel this in the quads? You probably do, right? Yeah. Okay, in the hamstring?
In the hamstring.
Alright, so kick it back and find a hamstring stretch. So switch your legs right here. Switch your legs right here. So right knee down, left leg is forward. And then come into half split. So shift everything back. Shift your butt back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. That also happens too, those hamstrings cramp up. Right, breathe though. I want you to breathe. I want you to breathe from your hip all the way down to your knee. Right, your goal here on your knee is to actually be kind of rolling forward of it rather than right on your kneecap. And go ahead and release. You take your hands down to the inside of your right leg. And start to make gentle circles with your knee, right knee. You can start to walk your right foot out a little bit wider. Just make some circles. Today was not a super hip heavy class, so I don't want to get too deep in the hips at the moment. But just adding some lubrication and then move in the opposite direction. Move the circles in the opposite direction. Go ahead and pause wherever you're at. You're gonna walk your hands up towards your left knee and just kind of stack everything up. Come back down so that your right knee and your left knee are back down on your mat. You might switch up your knees so that now, if your right knee that's down instead of your left. And then grab that strap and place it on the right foot here. So your left foot's gonna step forward into that 90-degree angle. Grab that strap. You start to pull and kick your heel in towards your glute. And you can stay right here. This might feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more stable, right? You can take your left hand down to your knee. Just gonna stabilize yourself right here. Perfect. And if you want that little something extra and you have it and you can grab hold of your foot, you might just take your right hand back and hold your foot. If you have this space in your chest and in your shoulders and you want to take both of your hands back, your left hand too, and grab hold of your foot. You click your heel in towards your glute, but then you take your pelvic floor and you scoop it forward. And you sit up nice and tall. And you breathe, right? So try to push your foot into your hand and pull your hand against your foot, if that's what you have. And then the same concept can apply even with the strap, right? You pull the strap against the foot and you kick your foot back into the strap. And you breathe. You always breathe. Still cracking up. I'm good. Sometimes it happens and it just doesn't go away, so I fully release it. Yeah, like tomorrow. And really. Right, so walk your hands down to the inside of your left foot, and then walk your left foot forward and out, just a little bit, almost like a lizard. And then you start to make your circles. Circles in one direction, circles in the opposite direction. Come back to center. You can bring both of your knees onto the blanket. I'm gonna come into a child's pose with your block. If you have a bolster by you, that might feel really nice. It depends on what kind of child's pose you want to take right now. So you have your blocks out in front of you or your bolster. Couple of things you can do with your bolster. You can shove the bolster up and towards your belly and kind of roll over it, get a nice gentle rounding in your lower back. If you want to continue getting into the shoulders, something that you might do is taking your blocks underneath both of your hands. And you're gonna place them down on top of the block so that you're gonna be a little bit more lifted up here. Right, so you're gonna let your belly drop down towards the bolster. And if you have those blocks underneath your hands, a couple of ways that you can play around with them are you can take your hands and flip your grip so that your palms are facing up. Okay, or even just like the pinky side of your hand is down. And for some of us, regular child's pose might just be enough, right? So you take what it is that you need. Maybe take a couple rounds of breath. Okay, so push down into your hand, come up onto your fingertip. You can stay in your child's pose if you want to stay, you have the bolster and that feels really good. If you want to find just a little bit more in the lower part of your back, I want you to walk your hands over to the right. So walk your hands on over to the right. As you inhale, I want you to lift your hips a little bit, and then as you exhale, press your left hip down towards your left heel. Okay, so you breathe in, you kind of lift up a little bit, breathe out, you pull left hip down towards your left heel. In and out through your nose. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, just stay in center. Breathe in. As you breathe out, walk your hands to the left. Right hip pulls down towards your right heel. Your nose. You inhale, you kind of lift your hips. As you exhale, you press your hips down towards your heels. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, stay at center. You can walk your hands back up towards your knees. I want you to sit back on your heels so that you're in a hero's pose. So you're standing on the shins. You're gonna drop your right hand down to the right side. Left arm will reach up and over, bicep frames out your ear. Find a nice side body stretch. Then think about lifting your armpit up towards the ceiling, pulling your chest towards the back of the room. And breathe. Okay, think about filling up your left rib cage, every bit of your breath. Take 2 more breaths right here, inhale. And exhale, breath in. Breathe out, inhale, come back up to center. As you exhale, left hand down, right arm reaches up and over. As you push your left fingertips down into the ground, and you kind of push your right rib cage towards the right side of the room. Then peel your chest open so that your armpit is lifting up towards the ceiling. And you breathe in and out through your nose. Take 2 more breaths. And inhale, come back to center. Take a deep breath in, arms reach up overhead. Breathe out, let it go. Happy Saturday, everyone.
Thank you.